I'm going to be talking about probably one of the many issues I think I'm the best on, and it's data privacy and security. Buckle up. Okay, so your data has been breached. I don't care who you are, where you live, what you do, or how good you are, you've been breached. How do I know this? Because, well, my official title at my day job is Senior Data and DevOps Engineer. And what that means is I'm a huge nerd. When it comes to tech, I know a lot about a lot. I'm not an expert in everything, but I'm an expert in a good bit of it. So I'm very cognizant of my data security, and whenever I create a new account or something for any service, if it does not allow passwords longer than like 100 characters, that's weird to me, because that's roughly the average length of my passwords. And I also use YubiKeys and all this other stuff. I do way more than any human being probably should. So if my data is consistently and regularly breached, someone who sees multi-factor authentication as more of a pain than a security feature absolutely does. On top of that, it's not just security that you have, it's the companies. And frankly, the majority of the companies out there do not give a shit about your keeping your stuff secure. They just don't. So, here's what we're doing. Here's my plan. Right now, the United States does not have any major data policy or security in place. It's pathetic. It really is. Compared, and even Europe with GDPR rules, those are kind of crap too, because there's so many exceptions. And I think it tries to solve the problem on the downstream end. What that means is it's basically putting a lot of the burden, yes, on the companies, but the consumer has to basically actively make a decision. And that's dumb, because people should have to opt into something. They shouldn't have to opt out. That's oversimplification. But here's what I want to do. First off, when a data breach happens, and they're happening all the time, and look at AT&T, for example. When data breach happens, right now, for the most part, there are no, unless it's a court settlement or something, there's no major requirement for a company to tell you. They're also not required to tell you what kind of data they have on you, unless they're using a system that requires that. I want to put the burden back on the businesses. The short version of this means the burden on keeping your data secure cannot be on the consumer. Why? Because consumers are not the ones storing the data. It's the companies. And when a breach happens, like Verizon, AT&T, Adobe, keep listing them, companies spend years in court with a class action, and you end up getting paid $2.43 for example, where you've been, like geographic coordinates of where you physically were for a time period, or health data, emails, social security numbers, everything, who you called, who you text, all this stuff. And you get nothing for it when that breach happens. And why does that matter? Well, if you ever get predictive ads, like, oh, you may be pregnant, or oh, you may be wanting to do this, well, imagine what would happen if like a big nonprofit, see that loosely, got a hold of some of this data, which they have, and then they can start putting together of like a list, women who have had an abortion, men who are sleeping around, or where you go to church, who your friends are. Those are the kind of things that matter.